Hello everyone, in this video I'm going to be showing you how I edit this picture in Photoshop, because when I post this picture on Instagram, many people saw the image and they loved the image, so they were like commenting that I should show them a way or more easiest way to edit it, or I should show them how I did my retouching on the image. That's why I'm making this video today, to show you and to help you to learn how I edit this image, so the image is going to look more nice. This video tutorial is brought to you by Desi Studio. Now, to edit your image or to edit this kind of image is a JPEG file. It's not the original raw file and it's very hard to edit because the image quality is very low. If we zoom in the picture, you will see what I'm talking about. The image quality is very low. I was not able to get the original file from Wale Visual, so someone else sent me this JPEG copy. So if you are editing this kind of JPEG copy, the process might be very hard and you might do some kind of editing over and over again just to be perfect, and it's going to take your time. So pictures with higher quality are very easy to edit, while pictures with lower quality are very hard to edit, and this our tutorial is going to take time. So now, to edit this kind of image, you are going to press Ctrl J on your keyboard. Once you press Ctrl J, you are going to create a new layer, or you just right click on this background layer and then you select duplicate layer, and you are going to see background copy. Just click OK. Now we want to remove the blemishes from the face, we want to remove the pimples. So I'm just going to select this, my spot healing brush tool. Once I select the spot healing brush tool, I'm just going to be removing all the spots from our pictures, and you continue doing it on other parts of the image. Let's just remove it from this part and remove it from this part also. And if I zoom in this image, I'm able to remove it from these areas and this part and this part. And let's also move to these areas and remove it. So I'm going to be showing you everything that I'm doing on this image. I'm not going to be skipping any process, but in my previous videos I normally skip some processes, so I'm not going to waste time. But in this video I'm going to be doing everything so you will fully understand, because since it's a low quality picture and I kind of skip one process, it might affect your own work when you are editing a very low quality image like mine. So I'm through removing all the blemishes and all the pimples from the face. The next thing now we want to do is that we want to kind of improve the contrast of the image. We want to improve the brightness and the contrast. So you can just go to this area, your create new adjustment layer, click on the brightness and contrast. So for the contrast, you can just increase the contrast to around 11, and the brightness you can leave it to be around 7. We are just going to merge these two layers together. You have to click on the background layer, hold Ctrl, click on the brightness layer and press Ctrl E on your keyboard. Ctrl E is going to merge these two layers together into one layer. Now we are going to be creating our frequency separation process. Most of you already know how to do your frequency separation process, but those frequency separation method can be different because we cannot use the same settings of those frequency separation on my previous video for this kind of image, because you know this image is very low quality, and if you use those kind of frequency separation process from my other videos on this kind of image, you will get dark results because of the higher Gaussian blur. So in this our image, we are going to be reducing the Gaussian blur radius. So now for the frequency separation process, you just have to click on your background layer. Once you click on the background layer, you just right click and we duplicate the layer, and we are going to be renaming this layer to low frequency color. So I'm just going to type low frequency color, and once I'm done, I'm just going to click OK. And now I'm just going to be creating another layer again. I'm just going to right click on this background layer. Once I right click on the background layer, I'm going to duplicate it again, and this time I'm going to be renaming it to high frequency layer. So once I'm done renaming it to high frequency layer, I'm just going to click OK. Now I'm going to drag this low frequency layer, this our low frequency color, below this our high frequency layer. So before you do that, before you drag it below this high frequency layer, you have to click on the low frequency color. Once you click on the low frequency color, you go to filter, blur, you select Gaussian blur, and now we are going to be changing the radius of this Gaussian blur to be around 4. Your radius of your Gaussian blur should be around 4. Once you are done, you have to just click OK. Now, once you are through, you have to drag this layer. You left click on the low frequency color layer, drag it under this high frequency layer. Once you drag it under this high frequency layer, the blur effect is going to remove from our image, and as you can see, the blur effect has kind of disappeared from our image. Now you have to click on this your high frequency layer. Once you click on the high frequency layer, you just go to your image, then you select apply image. Now you are going to see some kind of settings for your apply image. You will see layer, you will see channel, you will see blending mode, you will see opacity. So what we are going to do here is that we are going to be changing this layer. We will change it to low frequency layer. You make sure that this layer is selected at low frequency color. So once you change it to low frequency color, you come to this blending mode, and we are going to be changing this blending mode to subtract. So you have to make sure your blending mode is at subtract, and you have to make sure your layer is at low frequency color. And you can also see your scale. You have to make sure your scale is at 2, and your offset, you have to make sure the offset is at 128. Now once you are done, you have to just click OK, and once you are done clicking OK, you see that your image has changed. It kind of look gray, and once you are through, you have to go to your blending mode options. So you go to your blending mode options, you can change it to vivid light, or you can change it to linear light. So for me, I'm just going to be choosing linear light. You can also change it to vivid light if you like. In this kind of low image quality, I would advise you choose vivid light, because vivid light results are normally more less than linear light, as in linear light results are normally more harsher, or is more better for some kind of image. So I'm just going to use linear light, which is the normal blending mode options I normally use. The next thing that I'm going to be doing after I change this our blending mode to linear light, I will have to click on this low frequency color layer. Once I click on this low frequency color, I will have to right click on it and select convert to smart objects. And once you are done selecting your convert to smart objects, you have to go to your filter, blur, then you move to Gaussian blur. Now for the Gaussian blur radius, we want to increase this Gaussian blur radius depending on the Gaussian blur radius that will be better for our image. And as you can see, some kind of Gaussian blur radius settings. Don't worry, because you can still change these settings again when you are editing it on this layer part. You can still change the settings after. So for me, I'm just going to be choosing any settings that I like. I can choose 13, I can choose 18, but I'm just going to be leaving it at 18. Once I'm done, I'm just going to click OK. Now you have to head to this smart filter layer. Go to this smart filter layer, click on it, press Ctrl+I on your keyboard. Once you are done pressing the Ctrl+I, and we are done with this our frequency separation process. So the next thing now you have to do here is to select your brush. Just select your brush, and you make sure your flow is reduced to around 48. Now zoom in your image, and you can start applying this effect on your image. And as you can see, I'm applying it on this section. I'm also applying it on this area. So once I'm done with these areas of the neck, and I think I'm done with this area, let's move to this part. So I'm just going to continue applying it on this area. I'm just going to continue applying it on this area, and let's move to these other areas. You have to make sure that you don't apply it on this darker part of the skin, so it's not going to make this neck bone to look flat, as in it's not going to join this place with this other part of the skin, because this our frequency separation have one kind of effect that it likes to make everything on your image to look flat. So you have to be very careful while applying it. So let's move to these areas. Let's move to the face part of our image. So I'm just going to move to this area to apply it on this part. You can also reduce your flow of your brush. You can reduce the flow of your brush to make sure that the results will look more better. Now you have to also make sure your foreground color is white and the background color is black when you are applying this filter on the skin, so it's going to work. Because if this area, if you look at this area, if this section is black and the one below is white, you're going to be removing the filter from the image, but if it's white and the one below is black, you're going to be applying it on the image. So don't forget, your foreground color should be white and the background color should be black. So if you make a mistake, you have to just change it and make sure this area is at black, and you can correct that mistake. I'm going to continue applying this frequency separation on the skin, and I'm going to apply it on this area. Let's remove it from here and here, and I think I'm almost done. And let's continue applying it on this part. Let's just remove it from this area. And I'm done using this our frequency separation process that I just did. So what I'm going to do here is that let's look at the before and the after first. This is the before and this is the after. But I still feel like the effect has kind of removed some of these places. So I'll just have to remove it small from this area. So this highlight is going to be showing, this our highlight is going to be showing because it's important for some of this our highlight to be showing. So I'll just reduce the flow and apply it a little on this place. Now I think I'm done. I'm just going to merge all these layers together. Don't worry, because I normally merge all my layers together once I'm editing pictures. I'm not like other people that do leave many layers on this place, because it's kind of confusing when you're editing pictures and you see many layers here. You will not know which one to click on, which one to click on, and at the ending of the day you end up kind of mixing everything and it might spoil your work. So I'm just going to merge all these layers together. I will click on this high frequency separation layer, then I will hold Ctrl on my keyboard. You should hold Ctrl on your keyboard, click on the background layer, you hold Shift, click on this low frequency color layer, and you press Ctrl E. Once you press Ctrl plus E, it's going to merge everything together. So now I want to show you another different kind of skin smoothing process. So for this process, I'm just going to press Ctrl J on my keyboard. Once I press Ctrl J, it's going to create a new layer 1. And once I'm done, I want to invert this layer now. You have to press Ctrl I on your keyboard. Once you press Ctrl I on your keyboard, it's going to change the color of this picture. It's going to invert the image. And once you are done with the invert, remember you have to press Ctrl I on your keyboard to invert the image. So once you are done, we want to select our blur now. So you go to your filter, blur, you select your Gaussian blur. Remember you have to go to your filter, blur, and you select your Gaussian blur. So once you have selected this Gaussian blur section is going to open. Now you have to change the radius to be around 5. So the next thing you have to do now is to move to your filter order and go to high pass. So for the high pass, you can leave the high pass to be around 10. Once you are done, click OK. Now you have to change the blending mode to be around linear light. So once the blending mode is at linear light, you have to then move to this place here. Just click on this, your layer mask, and once you click on the layer mask, you can then press Ctrl I on your keyboard to then invert it and to remove those filters from the image. Or you can just click on this layer. You have to hold Alt on your keyboard and click on this place. Once you click on it, you just add the layer mask, and it's going to automatically add that black layer mask for you. So once you are done, you have to just select your brush. Once you have selected your brush, so I'm just going to zoom in the image now. I'm just going to zoom in the image, and once I'm applying it, you will see that it's like changing the appearance of the image. Our image is kind of looking more smoother than it was before. Remember, you can't do this kind of skin smoothing process for your own kind of image. It's only good for smartphone camera images and images with very low quality, images that you download from the internet that have very low quality. You can't do it for raw file because the result is not going to be nice. You can also try it on your raw file, and you will see that this process that we just did is going to make the image to look very bad. So you are going to do those our previous frequency separation process that we do in this image, or you can watch some of my old tutorial videos, so you will see ways that you can like kind of smoothen the skin of your image. So I'm just going to continue applying it on this area, and once I'm done with that part, I will just move to this area and apply it to on this area. And as you can see, our image is not looking more nice. It's looking very bad because of the quality of our image. It's because of the kind of image that I use. So once I'm done with this area, let's just move to this next part. I'm going to move to the neck area, and let's apply this our skin smoothing on this part of the image. Our image is still looking very smooth, but I'll be very careful. I will not apply too much on this area. So I'm just going to apply it on this part, move to this next part, and do it very quickly on this part. And our image kind of look more nice now. The image is now looking more nice. So once I'm done, I'm just going to merge these two layers and press Ctrl E on my keyboard, and we are done with the skin smoothing of this image. So the next thing I want to do now, or the next thing I want to do for my image, is to kind of adjust this eyebrow. This eyebrow is not looking nice, so I want to adjust the eyebrow because the one that I edited and post on Instagram has very sharp, nice eyebrow. So to fix the eyebrow of your image, you have to select your pen tool, move to this tool here, select your pen tool, zoom in your image, then you left click on this area. Once you left click and drag. You left click, hold and drag. So you come to this area, left click, hold and drag to kind of create curves here. Then you left click, hold and drag on this area, and let's just do it again. Left click, hold and drag on this area, and it's going to create another curves here. Since I did mistake here and the line is too much, so I'll just come here and left click on this area. Then I'm going to drag it like this, and once I'm done, I'm going to click on these areas. So I'm kind of drawing my own eyebrow on the image. So I'm just going to draw these areas again. Once I'm through, I'm just going to move here, and if you make mistake, you have to press Ctrl Z on your keyboard. So I'll just go here and draw like this. To do the next thing, we want to add a fader to the image. So you have to right click, then you go to make selection, and you make sure the fader radius is at 1 or is at 0. So I'm going to leave the fader radius to be at 1. Once the fader radius is at 1, I'm just going to click OK. The next thing I'm going to be doing here is that I'm going to be using my clone stamp tool. I'm just going to click on this clone stamp tool. Once I click on the clone stamp tool, and as you can see the name, if we move our mouse here, is clone stamp tool. So once you click on it, you increase your flow to be around, let's say 35, and let's start painting on this area. So I'm just going to click on this good part. Once I click on this good skin, and let's reduce the flow again. So once I reduce the flow, I'm just going to come to this area and paint again. And as you can see, I'm kind of moving this our good skin on these stray hairs. I'm kind of removing the stray hairs from the image. So I'm just going to continue applying it like this, and use Alt, hold Alt on this good part. Once you hold Alt on the good part, you left click on the good part, then you move your clone stamp to above, left click and hold and drag, and as you can see, it's going to be fixing it. Let's go to these areas, and I'll use my clone stamp tool on these areas, and as you can see the result of what we are doing. So I'm just going to press Ctrl J now on my keyboard, and let's do the same thing that we did for this place. We want to do the same thing that we did for this eyebrow, for this second eyebrow. So I'm just going to use my pen tool to draw around this place. It's still the same thing that we are doing, so I'm just going to draw around this area. Once I draw around this eyebrow, I'm just going to come to these areas too, draw around, come to this area and continue drawing around. So you have to make sure that you don't make mistake while doing it. So I'm just going to come here, draw around, come to this area too, and once I'm done, I'm just going to right click, then you make selection, make sure your fader radius is around 1. Once you are done, use your clone stamp tool, come to this area and then paint it. Click on this place, hold Alt, click on the good part, paint the bad side. You can come to this area again, hold Alt, paint this area, you come to this side, hold Alt, then you select and then you paint. Once I'm done, I'm just going to use my lasso tool to just click on it, or you can just right click and deselect. Once you deselect, it's going to remove those your lasso tool effects, this kind of things is going to remove it from the image. Now the next thing we want to do for our image, since we are done with the skin smoothing and we are done with the fixing of the eyebrow, we want to do dodge and burn on our image. We want to just do a very quick type of dodge and burn. So because of time, I'm not going to be doing my two types of dodge and burn. So there's a video that I already upload on my YouTube channel. There's one video I already upload on how to do dodge and burn. So if you watch that video, you'll see two methods of doing dodge and burn. We are going to be using one of the method. So to do the dodge and burn, you have to go to this your area. You have to go to your creating adjustments layer. You select curves. Once you select curves, you go to this creating adjustments layer again and select curves, or you can just go to this your curves one and press Ctrl J to create another curves layer. So we are going to be renaming this curves layer above to dodge, and you hit enter on your keyboard, and we are going to be renaming this curves layer below to burn. Once you are done, you just hit enter on your keyboard, go to this dodge layer. You just have to go to this dodge layer, then you click on the properties. We are going to be increasing the brightness. Then you collapse this your properties, then you go to the burn, click on the properties section, just double click on it, then you drag it down, and once we are done, you go to this dodge area, then you press Ctrl I on your keyboard. Once you press Ctrl I on your keyboard, it's going to invert and remove those effects from the picture. Then you go to your burn area and press Ctrl I. Then the next thing now you have to do is to merge these two layers together. So you have to click on the dodge layer, hold Ctrl and click on the burn layer and press Ctrl G on your keyboard, or you can just right click on it and then select group from layers. Now once you have selected this group from layers, it's going to show you name. You can change it to dodge and burn and click OK, or you can change it to any name you like. So for the dodge and burn, we are going to zoom in the image. So I'm just going to select dodge now, select my brush, and I'm just going to reduce the flow to be around 2. Once I reduce the flow to be around 2, I'm just going to dodge this area. Now for the dodge and burn, you have to dodge the lighter areas of your image and you have to burn the darker areas of your image. So I'm just going to dodge this area. Once I'm through dodging this area, let's dodge these areas again. So I'm just going to, let's look at the before and the after, and let's also dodge these areas. So I'm just going to dodge these parts. But I still think there's no need using the dodge on this kind of image. You know, it's a very low quality image and it's not giving me that kind of results that I need. So, but even if it's a low quality image, I still want to just apply it a little. So we come to these areas too and dodge this area, because we are supposed to dodge this place because the place is light. You can also dodge these areas too. You can come here and dodge these areas, and you can also dodge some of these areas. You can see this lighter part of the image, you can dodge it. If you dodge this forehead, it's going to be too much, because once you do a photo shoot, you will see that even without applying the dodge and burn effect, you will see that the forehead will be very bright. So there's no need dodging the forehead, and you have to just skip that area. So I'm just going to move to this burn layer. I'm going to click on this layer thumbnail here. I will just click on the burn, select my brush. I will then lower the size of the brush. Make sure your flow is at 2 and your opacity is at 100. So I'm just going to be burning this darker part of the image. So I'm just going to burn this area. Once I'm done, I will come here. So you have to left click and hold and drag. Once you left click, hold and drag, you can burn that area. This is the before and this is the after. Once I'm through with the nose, I want to go to the next part, which is this eyebrow. Let's move to the eyebrow. So I'm just going to go to this eyebrow and burn this eyebrow. And once I'm done burning this part, I will move to this other part too and burn this area. And as you can see the results, you can also burn this part of your image. You can burn this part too. And let's also burn the cheeks, but there's no need for burning the cheeks of this image, but let's just do it. So I'll just come here to burn this area and also apply it a little on this area. Let's just reduce the opacity to be around 71, but there's no need reducing the opacity, but I still have to reduce the opacity because of it's looking more dark on this section of our image. So once I'm done, I'm just going to highlight everything together. I will hold Ctrl, click on this burn layer. Once you click on this dodge and burn, hold Ctrl and click on this layer 1. Then you press Ctrl E on your keyboard to merge it. This is the before and this is the after. This is the before, the dodge and burn, and this is after the dodge and burn. Now the next thing I'm going to do now for my image, I'm going to be doing the camera raw filter. I'm going to apply camera raw filter for my image. So for the camera raw filter, I'm just going to go to filter. Once you go to filter, you select camera raw filter, or you press Ctrl Shift A on your keyboard. Once you press Ctrl Shift plus A on your keyboard, it's going to open your camera raw filter settings. So I'm just going to be playing with my settings. I'll go for the basic. You can increase the contrast to be around 23. You can also go to your clarity and increase the clarity to be around 30. And you can also increase your exposure or reduce it. And you can also do some kind of other editing on this area. You can also reduce the temperature. If we reduce the temperature, you can see the effects. If I reduce it to -5 for the tint, I can increase the tint to 5. So for the vibrance, I can just increase the vibrance to be around 48, or I can increase the vibrance to be around 41, because of our image is lacking vibrance. Our image look very bad. So I'm just going to leave the vibrance to be around, let's say, 48. Since the vibrance is at 49 already, you can go to your saturation and also increase the saturation, but there's no need. I can leave the saturation to be around 3. Now you can go to your color grading section. Once you go to your color grading section, you can just, let's click on this part. Then let's just click on this, our shadows first. We have to move to the shadows first, and as you can see, this is the highlights, this is the mid-tones, and this is the shadows. If you are changing the color grading for your shadows, it's going to be affecting the darker areas of your image. If you are changing for the highlights, it's going to be affecting the lighter areas of your image. And this is the mid-tone, the average section that looks somehow like gray. If you change the mid-tone, it's going to be changing the mid-tone of your image. So I'm going to start with the shadows first. So for the shadows, I'm just going to move the shadows to be around this kind of color that look kind of a red between pink and between green, so it looks orange. So for the shadows, I can also increase the shadows to be the same with our mid-tone. For the mid-tone, I can move it to these areas, and for the shadows, I can move it to be the same color. So for the highlights, I'm going to be reducing the highlights to be blue. I want the highlights to be around blue type, and as you can see, my color grading now look different. So I can also go to this basic and reduce this saturation, because my image is kind of looking more red. So I'm just going to reduce this vibrance to be around 30. Once the vibrance is around 30, you can also go to your temperature, and you can also reduce the temperature to be around -7, because we have already reduced this temperature before, but I'm kind of adding another extra editing on the image, and I just feel like adding another extra editing. I'm going to reduce this exposure. No need of increasing the exposure. You can also reduce the exposure if you like. So I'm just going to go to these details now. Since the image is a very low quality image, there's no need for the sharpness to be very high. So I'm just going to use this noise. I'm just going to leave the noise to be around 20. The noise 20 look more better. Our image is kind of looking very smooth, and it's not nice for a professional editing. You can see the reason our image is like this is that the image is not the original raw file. It's not a professional editing, or it's not a professional image. It's a very low quality image that I downloaded from Instagram instead of having the original raw file. So now I'm just going to go to this basic, and let's still do some kind of settings at these areas, and I think there's no need to do other settings again. I'm done with all the settings. Okay, let's go to this calibration and increase the blue primary to be around 11, and let's reduce the temperature again to be around -8. Once I'm done, I'm just going to click OK on my camera raw filter. This is the before the camera raw filter effect and after the camera raw filter effect plus the dodge and burn. So now after the camera raw filter, we want to do another thing, which is the skin tone. We want to add skin tone to our image. We want to change the skin tone, so the skin tone is going to match with the whole body, because some kind of places look purple, some places look red, some places look blue. So we want to match the skin tone together. Now to create the skin tone process, you have to just click on this upper layer here. Then you move to your create new adjustment layer and select solid color. So now I'm just going to be typing some kind of numbers under this place because that's the kind of color I will need for my skin tone. Because you can also choose other type of skin tone. You can see this types of colors and you can use it as your skin tone, but I'll be typing my own personal numbers and my own personal numbers here to create my own kind of skin tone. So to type the numbers, I'm just going to go to this area and delete it. I'm just going to type F, then I'll then type D, then I'll type 0, I'll type B, and I'll type 9, and as you can see it's going to create this kind of lighter skin color for our image. So I'm just going to click OK, and we have to rename the layer to skin tone. So once I rename it to skin tone, I'm just going to hit enter on my keyboard, and I'm just going to go to this blending mode option and change it to multiply. And you can also change it to color bond or multiply depending on the one you like. So the next thing now you have to do is to reduce the opacity. So I'm just going to reduce the opacity to be around, let's say, to be around 40. And once you're done, you have to then move to this area, this skin tone layer here, this layer marks, this white layer marks. You have to click on the white layer marks and press Ctrl I on your keyboard. So once you press Ctrl I, it's going to remove those skin tone effects from your image. So now the next thing you have to do is to select your brush. Once you select your brush, we want to start applying those skin tone on the image. So you have to start painting it on the image. So once you select your brush, you just start painting around the image. Don't worry, we are still going to remove it out from these eyes, and we are still going to remove it from the mouth. So I'm just going to be applying it on this place, and I'll just apply it on this area, and I'll also apply it on this part. Once I'm done applying it on this part, I want to just zoom in my image. Once I zoom in my image, then I want to remove this effect from these lips, and I want to also remove it from these eyes. So I'm just going to select my brush, go to this place, make sure your foreground color is black this time. Make sure this foreground color is black. Once this one above is black and the one below is white, you have to select your brush, and we want to start removing this effect from the eyes. You just paint around the eyes to remove it from the eyes. You want to also remove it from this side. Let's go to the lips and remove it from this part of the lips. Once I'm done, I still want to adjust some part of this lips is not looking nice. So I'm just going to merge all these layers together, use my clone stamp tool. Once I select the clone stamp tool, I'm just going to go to these areas to kind of adjust it. I will just click on this good side, hold Alt on your keyboard, click on the good side, then you paint on the bad side to remove those bad things out of the bad side, and make sure your flow is at 6. So I'll just do it like this and come to these areas to adjust it. I'll also adjust this area. I'm almost done, but the image is still looking very dark. We want it to be bright. So I'm just going to go to this create new adjustment layer, go to brightness and contrast. This time I'm going to be increasing this brightness, and let's just reduce this contrast because our image kind of look very red. So let's reduce the contrast to be around -9 and the brightness to be around 10. Once I'm done, let's merge these two layers together. Now I want to create another photo filter. I will just go to this image adjustment and move to photo filter. And once I move to this photo filter, you can see warming filter, you can see cooling filter. So I'm just going to select cooling filter and leave the density to be around, let's leave the density to be around 8. Once I'm done, I'm just going to hit enter on my keyboard, or I'm just going to click OK, and we are almost done. Now for the next thing I'm going to do is that I'm going to make these eyes to look more beautiful. I want to do the eye whitening and to change the colors of the eye. Now to do the eye whitening process, you have to go to your creating adjustment layer, and you have to then move to your vibrance and saturation. You have to reduce the vibrance to be around 42, and once you are done, you have to go to your creating adjustment layer again, select curves. This time you are going to increase the brightness of the curves, and once you are done, you have to highlight these curves and the vibrance layer. You have to click on the curves layer, hold Ctrl, click on the vibrance layer and press Ctrl G on your keyboard to group it, or you can right click on it and select group from layers. And once you are done, we want to rename it to eye white. Once I'm done renaming to eye white, I'm just going to click OK, and I'm just going to click on this eye white group layer, and I'm just going to go to this place. This is our create new adjustments layer, near the create new adjustments layer section, but add layer marks. I'm going to go to this add layer marks section and hold Alt first. Once I hold Alt, I'm going to add layer marks, and it's going to automatically create this black layer marks. And as you can see, I hold Alt on my keyboard. Once I hold Alt, ALT, I click on add layer marks. Now you select your brush. Once you select your brush, you start applying this eye whitening on the image. And as you can see, it's making the eyes to look white. So you have to just apply it on this whiter part of the image, apply it on this area, and also apply it on this part. And I'm also going to apply it on this area, and I'm done. You can also apply it on the teeth if you like. You can apply it on the teeth. And I'm almost 99% done with this tutorial. Now for the next thing we want to do is that we want to add colors to the eye. We want to make the eye to look more beautiful. So we want to add colors to the eye, so the eye is going to look more nice, because this eye look very dull. So we want to make the contact lens in the eye to look more nice. To make the eye to look very nice, you have to go to this area. Once we click on this layer here, you have to add another empty layer. You have to go to this place here, click on it, and it's going to create another empty layer here. So the next thing now you have to do is that you have to press Shift backspace on your keyboard. Press Shift and backspace on your keyboard. If it didn't work, you have to press Shift delete on your keyboard, and once you press Shift delete or Shift backspace on your keyboard, it's going to create this fill section of Photoshop. Mainly you have to press Shift and backspace. We want to make sure that the blending mode is at normal and the content is at 50% gray. So you make sure that this content is at 50% gray, the opacity is at 100, and the blending mode is at normal. So you have to click OK. Now you head to your blending mode option. You have to just go to this blending mode area. So once you move to your blending mode options and select color dodge, you will see that the effect as in the image has changed. The next thing now you have to do is that we want to create a new layer mask. So you have to go to your layer mask, click on the layer mask, and it's going to create layer mask here. Then you click on this layer mask and press Ctrl I on your keyboard to remove this effect from the image, or you can just hold Alt on your keyboard and then you click on this layer mask, and it's going to create a dark layer mask, and it's going to remove those effects from the image. Now you have to select your brush. Once you select your brush, you have to reduce the size of the brush and increase the flow. Then you make sure your foreground color is white and the background color is black. Then you start applying this thing on the image, and as you can see, it's changing this center, it's changing this part of the eyes. Because our image quality is very low, it's giving the eyes very bad results, and it's not giving us the result that we need. If the image quality is high and we do this kind of things on our image, it's going to make the eye to look more beautiful. Don't paint these edges here, don't paint this part. So let's go to the next eye. I'll just go to this next side and paint this area. Let's paint around this area. So once I'm done, I'm just going to paint here like this, and I'm done. Let's reduce the opacity to, let's just reduce the opacity to be around 62, or let's leave it to be around 42. Once I'm done, I'm just going to merge all these layers together. Now I want to add my own personal colors to the eye, because the low quality image has destroyed those results of the eye contact lens on the image. So I'm just going to press Ctrl J now. Once I press Ctrl J, I'll open my camera raw filter with Ctrl Shift A. Once I press Ctrl Shift A on my keyboard, it's going to open the camera raw filter section. So what I'm going to do here is that I'm just going to increase the purple for the camera raw filter. Once I'm done, I will hit enter on my keyboard, and as you can see, and once I'm through with the camera raw filter, I will just go to this layer mark section. I'll hold Alt on your keyboard, and click on it, and it's going to remove the filter from the image. Now you reduce the size of your brush. Once you reduce the size of your brush, we want to add our own color. So I'll just paint these areas, paint here, and let's just paint these areas. So I'll just paint these areas like this. Once I'm done, I'll also paint these areas. So I'm adding my own color into the eyes, and because the low quality image has spoiled the eyes. So once I'm done with the purple, I'm just going to merge the layers together and do the same thing again. Create another layer and open our camera raw filter. So I'm doing the same with the next color. The next color is green. I'll be using green this time. So I'm just going to reduce this tint. So once I reduce the tint, you will see that our image has become very green. I will just hit enter on my keyboard again, and once I'm done, I'll hold Alt on the keyboard, hold Alt on your keyboard and click on this add layer mask. Now I'm just going to select my brush. Once I select the brush, let's add another effect like this. Let's add cycle effect. So I'm just going to draw cycle around this area. So I'll just draw cycle like this. You're not supposed to be doing this kind of things for your image, because I'm only doing it here because the quality of this image is very low and it has destroyed the eye contact lens. So I'm kind of creating my own fake contact lens for the image. So once I'm done like this, I'm also going to reduce the opacity. So I'm just going to go to opacity here. I'll just move to opacity and reduce the opacity to be around 80. Or reduce it to be around 66. So once I'm done, I will merge everything together, press Ctrl J again to create another copy layer. Once I'm done, I'll press Ctrl Shift A again on my keyboard. Once I press Ctrl Shift A, it's going to open our camera raw filter. So once the camera raw filter is open, this time I'm just going to go to the temperature area to increase the orange. Once I'm done, I'm just going to click OK. Now I'll hold Alt again and click on this layer mask. Once I'm done, let's just use this our brush to add another long line here. I'll just draw long lines at this area. Between the green, I'll just draw long line like this. And I'll also move to the next areas to draw long line. Just line like this. That's what I'm just drawing at this area. Once I'm done, I will reduce the opacity. Let's reduce the opacity to be around, let's say 43. The opacity is at 43 and 43 looks more nice. And once I'm done with this opacity, let's merge these two layers together again. Press Ctrl J on your keyboard, press Ctrl Shift A again. Now we are going to be adding blue color. So I'll just reduce this like this and hit OK. And once I've hit enter on my keyboard, I'm just going to go to this place, hold Alt on your keyboard, click on the add layer mask, and then we are going to be adding blue. So for this blue, I'll just add it at these areas like this. So once I'm done like this, I'll move to the next eye to add the blue, and I'm done adding the blue. For now, I'm just going to reduce the opacity, and let's reduce the opacity to be around 33, and we are done with this eye. Now let's look at the before and the after of the overall editing that I did on this image. This is the before and this is the after. If I zoom in the image again, this is the before and this is the after. And if I zoom out the image, this is the before and this is the after. And as you can see, the image is now looking more beautiful and more nice. And we are done with this tutorial. Thank you for watching. If this video was very helpful to you, subscribe for more videos, turn on notifications so YouTube will notify you when I upload a new video, and leave a like to help the channel out.